it's almost lunchtime. My name is Sean O'Dell. I lead developer advocacy at Spacelift, and we're going to have a little bit of fun. It's 15 minutes. We're not going to do like a major product demo, but just a little bit about myself. I am a reformed enterprise architect. I used to only care about infrastructure, never apps, right? I did once upload my keys, or my peers' keys, to GitHub. That was fantastic. I'll talk about that in my journey today. I am always customer and community first. I was a customer to begin with, and I am a Texan, and I prefer seafood over steak any day of the week. So, and yes, there was a soccer reference. So what is Spacelift? We are infrastructure as code, or excuse me, we are CI/CD for infrastructure as code, purpose built, and we'll talk about that as we navigate through. Hopefully everybody knows what infrastructure as code is. If you don't, let's have a separate conversation. So here's a little bit of the journey. Starting locally. Just as any app dev does, we start locally. We take our code, we build it locally, we test it, we break it, and that's really where it all begins. So here's a little bit of a depiction, kind of what it looks like from a Terraform perspective. I'm a user. I put a few things together, and I run a plan, I run an apply, and then I push it to my provider of choice, and then ultimately it gets pushed, right? The key here is it's done locally, so it's me. If there's anybody else involved, it gets a little bit different. And where's my state? Where's my configuration? How do I scale beyond the local? So in my own journey, this is an example of an application that a team that I was on that we built, and we took all of these lovely solutions together and built this fine application from infrastructure as code all the way from nothing to application fully running and deployed. And the key is, what I think is interesting about CI/CD is infrastructure as code, is you can take a lot of different things and you can glue it together, just like any sort of app dev environment. And in this example, it worked, right? There was 7 of us on the team. We figured out how to make it work, mostly with GitLab, but it wasn't perfect. And there were some gaps, right? And so as IAC has kind of come through, some of the journeys that have or some of the challenges that have come about in these different times is isolated development, right? If I was working on something, so I said I uploaded my peers' GitHub keys. Let me give you an example. This was 5 or 6 years ago now, but we were doing things locally. One of my peers, he made some changes. He had a AWS shared key and private key inside of a YAML file that I didn't know about. He built it, gave it to me, I didn't read it, I didn't look at it, and guess who uploaded that to a public repo on GitHub? Me. Built locally, shared with me, I took the blame for it. We still laugh about it. I mean, it's been something we've talked about for a while now. But we were building in isolated environments, right? But with IAC, maturity's come along. We want to do this in scale. We've got larger teams, right? DevOps is about hacking, which is what happened in that previous example. But we've repurposed tools. And sometimes those aren't built perfectly, or as this lovely graphic tells you, my code works, but I have no idea why. And it's the same way with infrastructure. Same thing that we do. So in that journey, OSS actually solved some of the challenges, right? One of those things was Terragrunt, which I'm a big fan of. And I love the just kind of quick snippet on the right-hand side. It is kind of the root folder structure. This did help overcome some code sprawl, some complexity, and it allowed you to execute Terraform for a single module all at once, rather than having to break it up and take a lot of time. Just like we do in development, right? If I need to spin up a test, can I do it recursively? All that good stuff. And then it allowed for some custom action. So going outside of just Terraform, including some specific additional pieces that might be a problem. And so the open source world actually developed on top. The real issue for me, kind of personally, that came about is something that Atlantis tried to solve and is solving from an open source perspective. And this is really about pull requests, okay? So yes, and you would hope that if you're doing things in a code or a codified fashion, you would have pull requests, you'd have mergers, you would have comments, all those good things. Well, that was not available in kind of the initial iterations of infrastructure as code. And so Atlantis came along, provided this visibility, provided some collaboration. If I deployed it, or if I submitted a PR, somebody else was able to come along and approve it, or more importantly, just validate it. And so we started to work together in a collaborative team. But unfortunately, that only goes so far. And so we still had some challenges. There's more than just Terraform, right? I've got CloudFormation templates, I've got Pulumi, I've got Azure Resource Manager, I've got a bunch of different ways that I'm producing code for infrastructure. And so, came about. But now there are individual teams. Maybe we have created some silos like I did in my previous example, as I mentioned, all the way to lack of visibility. Think of the fact of, if I provision something, maybe I don't necessarily know what my other teammates are doing, we overlap each other, right? You run into a lot of problems, changes, diffs, and so on. And I mean, these are common challenges in the app dev world, not necessarily, we didn't really think about those from an infrastructure perspective, but now that we're doing it in code, this is where we are. The other thing that really is important to me is the security aspects. And so I really first, when I got into IT, obviously outside of support, I worked in enterprise security and compliance. Yay, such a fun job. But even to this day, I still care about security, right? And so one of the things that we couldn't really bring into the equation in DevOps is adding security into that paradigm. And so that was also an additional challenge. Now there's some solutions that have tried to do that on the OSS side. And that's where I come to Spacelift. Yes, it took me 8 minutes to get there. But Spacelift, one of the things that we're trying to do, and we're continuing to work with our community and our customers, is to develop all of these things together and really build a highly collaborative, secure platform that allows each organization to do what they think is best. And that means in some organizations, some of our customers, right, one team does it a little bit differently than another team. That's okay, right? We want to allow that. If you want to use a certain, on the app dev side, if you want to use a library, or if you want to use, Kubernetes versus, a Fargate or a Lambda, something of that nature, right? You give those options. On the infrastructure as code side, we want to do the same, but we also want to do this in a collaborative way. And so that is where, whoops, went too far. Let me go to a demo here. And act like I've never done this before. So this is Spacelift. Hopefully my internet holds up with me. Once again, we support Terraform, Pulumi, CloudFormation templates, Kubernetes. And then the other thing is we're also going to do the integration to your public cloud providers for you. So it's impossible for me to upload my keys to a public repository, right? So we're doing a lot of the work for you and not having Sean moments. So let me take a quick view of one of our deployments. And as you can tell, this is pretty specific. We're looking at drift detection on purpose. And in the example, one of our peers, Jean-Marc, he actually was doing an AMI differential. And so in this case, he was basically doing some validation checks. And what we wanted to do in the plan phase is we are looking for, obviously we run a Terraform apply, we're making change to a bucket. Did it make a, necessary change? Did it break something? Was it insecure? And in this case, we want to provide you that information. If I look at another one, that may be too old, but we'll try it. Come on, internet, work with me. Demo gods. There we go. So in this example, I made one specific change to the environment. And so what we've done is you can actually add comments from a team's perspective, as you can see here, and say, hey, this looks really good. No, this looks terrible. Why did you make this change? This is going to break something that I'm building. All the way to adding different policies and different resources. So let me look at the policies real quick. We've integrated with OPA, our Open Policy Agent, very clear. And we allow you to have push policies all the way to login policies and trigger policies. So if you have maybe a change to one of your infrastructure environments that happens to be kind of the core, it will then trigger off additional changes if you so desire, right? If I'm making a significant change in dev, maybe I can take it to test all the way to prod. And if you're doing blue-green deployments, we can get really creative in that same scenario to allow you to make changes to one end but not the other at the infrastructure layer, just as you would do at the software deployment layer. All the way to looking at different things, right? Was this this is our kind of a policy around Terragrunt from a mono repo perspective. and it allows you to bring a lot of the same Terragrunt perspectives and purviews into it as well. And then let me show a couple things, because I know this always comes up, is what do we support? All of our VCS providers, native support. We can add comments. We can integrate really easily, and then also with the public clouds, AWS, Azure, Google as well. And so here's a quick view of all of the runs. I wanted to show this real quick. This is two very specific ones: Terraform drift detection, as well as our CloudFormation AWS example, which is something that we often do in a fun moment. I don't know why Apple is doing that. So any comments or questions? I ran through that real quick, but I wanted to kind of give a highlight, and I know it's lunchtime, so I wanted to be respectful of your time as well. So any comments, questions, thoughts? If not, we have a booth. Come by, check us out. A couple things to note. I think some of my team are in the back. They're gonna, if you want a t-shirt, you can have a t-shirt. We have a happy hour tonight if you're interested in joining, and if you want to win a Lego Space Shuttle Discovery, you can also do that, because we're Spacelift, like same theme, right? It's the way to go. But yeah, it'd be cool to hang out. Hope you enjoy CDCon. I know for us, it's our very first one, because, well, we're a startup. But we'd love to have a conversation, see what you're doing, and see how we all can work together. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.